So I'm going to talk about something a little different here. Rather than just talk about directly moderators and how they're destroying the internet as we know it, I'm going to talk about subgroups of moderators. Kind of like the subgroups of an animal, even though they're less than an animal, but you see where I'm going with this. Anyway, the subgroup I want to talk about right now is webcomic moderators. Now, not all webcomics are bad. I can only name like two of them that aren't. One of them that comes to mind is The Oatmeal, which acts much more like a Cracked magazine article. And then Nikanakwa Magna's webcomics are not bad, but typically webcomic forums are heavily moderated. They're just saturated with it. And I don't understand why. Is it that whole egomania of writing a webcomic and suddenly you think you're big shit? Because you're not. I mean, like I said, there are a few talented webcomic writers, but I think even they know better, and they're humble about it. Unlike Penny Arcade, Control-Alt-Delete, Order of the Stick, things like that. So, what this comes down to isn't even so much that they're so full of themselves on their own shitty webcomic that is poorly written, poorly drawn, they never get any better. No, it's not even about that. What it's about is the fact that they're so sincere about heavily moderating their forums when they're using primitive technology. Have you ever been to a webcomic forum? It's like you're in 1998 again, because they use the most mediocre scripts and coding you could ever possibly think of. But meanwhile, they want to tell you what the fuck to do. This is the way I look at it. If you're using a programming language that is like in 1998, where you're typing with one hand because you're an utter newbie at the internet, and you're still using dial-up and everything lags and you can't load more than 2 kilobyte pictures or something, you have no business moderating at all. In fact, people that you've moderated should exploit your primitive language and take every single backdoor that comes with such primitive language and hack your forum. Because you're just, the audacity of you to act that way when you're using shitty language and then you make a poor comic and then you want to act like that, that's just too much. There's no way to deal with that. I cannot imagine anyone having the justification for putting up with that amount of bullshit. So, that's all I have to say about webcomic moderators. They're a particular brand of moderators because they're the just dregs of the earth. There is not one thing useful about them, and they're like sewer rats. They're just dirty and smudgy and greasy and stupid. They have nothing to offer, and they're not talented at all. They're not intelligent. They don't even know how to make a goddamn forum. And meanwhile, they want to tell you what to do. That's why I get so pissed about moderators. They're not better than me. Therefore, they're not in a position to give me any rules. The only rules I have to follow are the rules of the land, the law. Because in some ways, not always, but in some ways, I vote for the law. That's why we have the democratic process. And of course, forums love to say that too. This is not a democracy, this is a dictatorship. Well, guess what? Dictators die. Dictators get gunned down, and then you see pictures of it on the internet where you see people holding machetes to the throat, and you see them having battered wounds in their head with bags over their head and shit. Do you really want to be a dictator? Do you really want to go there? I didn't think so. So shut your fucking mouth, Richard the Rapist Bueller. So I guess that's all I have to say.